Greetings and welcome back to Smartwatch Ticks. Yes, it's an exciting day, and this is lightning striking not once, not twice, but 3 times. What you are about to see here is something that I think is truly amazing. We are mutually getting the opportunity to experience the unboxing and examination of Finow's latest venture into smartwatch technology with yet another Android 5.1 release smartwatch. Oh, and they know how to wrap good, too. Okay. So, which one am I talking about? Well, you know, it's already in the title of the video, right? I build up all this suspense, and you've already clicked on it. There, okay. We're getting into the box. Let's see if we can pull it out here. What we are fortunate enough to have is the actual engineering prototype that the Finow engineers and reps look at, review, check out, then package back up and send to Smartwatch Ticks so that we can basically unveil it for you and everybody else in the world through this YouTube channel. And it's really a rare honor to be able to do this. Now, we have in here the watch, and this looks like this is actually delivered in finished packaging. So this is how it's going to come to the customer. And again, just like we will show it later, the X3 original, it has the nice silicone bands. So remember, the X1 has a leather band and the X3 has silicone. The X1 has 1 button and the X3 has 2. So this is the X3 Plus, meaning it's plus up on its processor and its memory. Now, the one thing that I really find nice about this, and this is one of my main primary watches, is the fact that it's got this nice contour design. It's really got a sweet look to it when you put it on. It's not yelling out at you, I'm a watch with a lot of buttons and bells and whistles. It's subdued, and in black it even looks smaller than the one does in silver. And with the recessed buttons, one of them, like the typical one that you have in the middle of the X1, this X3, when you press that, when you go back to the clock display, but this is just like a 1-level back button. And I really find that handy. I do use that from time to time, in addition to doing the sweep down kind of an effect to go back. So we have the watch, we have the charging dock, and because this is, I'm pretty sure, identical in size, shape, configuration, and everything to the original X3, the X3 Plus dock should be identical as well. And it just magnetically couples on here. Put in your USB cord, which is probably in the box. We have a screwdriver. You notice they've gone from the blue to the black now. That seems to be a nicer screwdriver, thinner. And we take the plastic out inside. We have the USB charging cable to go with the dock. We have a bag of screws, extra screws for the watch. And then we have the manual, which is in really tiny manual. Really small writing. Okay, let's take a look at it on camera. It starts in English over here. And I don't know, of course, just opening it, whether this is the standard manual that comes with the X3, and it's also going to be included in the X3 Plus, or whether it's a new manual that's been made up just specifically for the X3 Plus. Most likely, it's the default manual, because other than the bump up to the Android 5.1 and the processor to a faster processor speed, and the memory moving up to 1 gigabyte of RAM and 8 gigabytes of ROM, pretty much it should be basically the same watch. But time will tell, and experimentation and exploration, so the site is all in Chinese. All right, so that's the unboxing. Shall we turn it on and see what it does? All right, let's give it a try. Here it comes with the Finow logo. And if they had the volume turned up on it, we should hear a sound as it goes through its boot up process. And it says Smartwatch. We're seeing that starting screen often on many of the Android 5.1 watches as they boot up. So that's probably part of the layering of the Android 5.1. It's just like on the phones. You know, Google supplies an Android version and it boots up on all the phones, and then they have their software that they layer over, which is controlled through firmware. Now we're going to talk about that. First, I want to just show you all of these watch faces. Well, let's use the back button. That's what it's there for. Press and hold. We're on the first one. So take a look at these. These are the installed watch faces that have come with this watch. Now, the reason I'm showing you these now is because I did get notice from Finow while this watch was in the mail that they have done a firmware revision to the watch, and that when I get it, I should open it and apply the firmware update through a process called flashing. Now, technically, flashing is kind of synonymous with installing. You know, you install apps into your memory, either on your phone or your watch. But if you wipe it out, the installed applications go away. Flashing is like installing, except it's a little more permanent. The information that gets written into the watch or the phone that's flashed tends to stay there even when you like reboot or clear out the memory of the phone or the watch. So flashing firmware is a process of permanently installing new operating system overlays to the Android 5.1 that are specific to the phone company. I'm going through all of this and showing you before we do the flashing, because I want to guide you quickly through the flashing process so you're not scared of it, and then show you the result after we flash. You may end up needing to flash a watch or even a phone, but for sure a watch one of these days, because no matter which one you buy, they're constantly improving it. Sometimes they push you that update, and you can do check for updates. It's called an OTA, over-the-air update, and it'll update it automatically. But sometimes you actually have to get in there and flash the firmware yourself. To do that, you need a PC, you need special driver software installed in the PC that will recognize and talk to the watch. You need a piece of software that you run that will allow you to install the flashed software into the memory. And then, of course, you need the package, the information, the flashing firmware, the firmware itself that you're going to put in. Once you got that, it's a pretty quick and easy process. And we'll take a quick look at that once we get through these watch faces. And then we'll pop back in here and take a look at them again and see how they've changed. Because that's one of the things I was told, is that there's different watch faces that have been installed or will be installed with this new firmware update. You notice there are a lot of watch faces in here. And they just keep going and going. And then there's the plus sign at the very end, which when you're on a network, you can hit that plus, and it'll actually access the servers and allow you to download more watch faces. And if that wasn't enough, there's also the capability in these Finow watches to install custom watch faces that have been designed by experts and amateurs, and even you, if you want to create your own watch face, that you can put inside the watch. And those are available as well. So countless options for using this watch in a creative way to match your style for the moment with whatever watch face you're looking for. We'll get into all the software and everything else, but first let's flash this puppy and take it from there. Well, I'm back, and some good news and not so good news. Again, this is an engineering prototype of the X3 Plus, and in attempting to flash it with the brand new firmware, it wouldn't flash. It flashed, but it just kind of got stuck. And so I went back and flashed it to the X1 Plus firmware, which I had a copy of that came along as a result of the X1 watch, the engineering model being already reviewed, and it installed flawlessly, but nothing really changed much with the watch faces. So got a little technical bug that needs to be worked out. But nonetheless, we did successfully go through the flashing process. There's fewer of these watch faces that are showing up now. But I did put in the clock skin folder with a whole bunch of the developer-created watch faces, and I thought I'd just parade through that and just show you quickly what some of them look like. You've seen many of them in our monthly release of new watch faces, and it's just amazing, and I'm really, really happy that Finow allows the customer to install easily, pretty easily. We have instructions on how to do it. These custom designed watch faces. They're just amazing, and they're beautiful, and wow, what can you say? All right, here's something else I wanted to show you as we move forward. That's about it we're going to do on flashing. I got a bunch of videos. I'll put a link into an entire playlist that tells you about how to go through and flash your firmware, which when you get your final version, hopefully will be on a stable platform, but oftentimes there is update information sent by the company, and you may need to flash your firmware. So we have other videos on that. What I wanted to show you is something unique now to this Android 5.1 implementation of some of the software. And I got it on a short timeout. The Play Store. I'm getting ready to go in and install the Antutu software so that we can do the benchmark testing, see how fast this is. But watch this. When I go into the Play Store, before you would get this big round circle and you'd have a challenging time trying to be able to find the buttons on the corners and put in the information that you need to do. But now, even with just the sign-in process, it's automatically reduced to a square. So there's some efficiencies that have been built in where we've had issues with not being able to reach information that's outside the normal circle that you get with most of the apps. And that's a cool thing. So what I'm going to do now is go ahead and log into Google and download my Antutu software, and we'll come back and benchmark this first. Okay, we have the Antutu benchmarking app all up and loaded in the X3 Plus, but I thought I'd show you the same thing running on the original X3. So we got the app on both of these, and we are going to run the test and see how they differ. Ready? Go! So it flips sideways to do a 3D test to begin with. And you can already see that the new one is much, much faster. And it's actually playing the graphics test. There's some music playing. It's kind of soft in the background. But what it's really doing is checking the processor for how well it can reproduce this, how smooth it is. And you can see on the original X3, it bypassed that test. It just couldn't handle it. The processor wasn't fast enough. Now, even still, this is a watch. It's not a screaming phone. So you're seeing sometimes it's jittery. Sometimes there's some little aberrations that show up on the screen. It's right at the edge of its ability to do this, but it did do it, and that's pretty impressive. So it's now checking a couple of other graphics processes, and it's skipping those because it's just not quite fast enough in the watch arena to run them. If you do these on a phone, a really fast, cutting-edge phone, those will definitely play and do some great gaming as well. So The new watch has some capabilities, but it's still got some ways to go, but are way, way better in terms of what it's doing so far than its predecessor, the original X3. Okay, going to let these go to the finish, and then we'll see what our numbers are. Okay, we're getting kind of close to completion, but I want you to notice this. You see, it's referring on the old watch, the X3, as a W812A. It said that just before it popped up here. On the new one, it's referring to it as an X1 Plus. So the X3 is the X1 with 2 buttons added. And there's our results. Just at 10,000 on the older one, and the new one is screaming ahead at 2,300, more than twice as fast in overall benchmark testing with the Antutu benchmark test. And in terms of apps, they're the canned basic ones. I'll just thumbnail through them because there's many other reviews where we go into these and you can look at them. Phone, message, and contacts. That works with your SIM card. We'll come back to settings. The health component gives you your heart rate and pedometer capability, which are slightly different. We have to tap here with the three button, or the 2 diodes and 1 sensor on the back. It's an upgraded version of the pulse meter, just like we've seen in the X1 Plus watch. Same hardware in both of these, just 2 buttons on this one. And now it's doing that measurement into my finger, which hopefully, because it's taking a while, means it's going to be a good, stable number. And notice that it's continuing to run as long as I have my finger on it. So that's good news in terms of being able to see it change over time. Well, it looks like it's trying to hone in the 80s, doesn't it? That's what it's getting from my fingertip, is more or less the heart rate. Okay, come back out of that. And the pedometer gives you the steps, and you can do interval information. You can set all of your data. That hasn't changed either. So all of that's the same. We have a music app for playing onboard music. We have alarms. We have the weather app, the basic built-in sound recorder, the watch helper, which lets you scan a code so that you can tether it to your phone. But again, it's using the same basic tethering technique, which is pretty limited. We don't have full-on tethering from the upgraded watch either. If you look at these side by side, you'll notice that the ink blot test is exactly the same. It's going to ask for exactly the same piece of software that you install in your phone, and it's going to work exactly the same way for tethering. So unfortunately, there's not an improvement on the tethering capability of the new Plus watch. It's just faster with more memory on board. And then you got the App Store, which is the store that it's not the Google Play Store. It's the App Store, okay, that Finow or others maintain. And inside of that, you have these different apps, which are mapped, I guess, for the watch, like Facebook, WhatsApp, YouTube, stocks, currency, Skype, and Chrome. And sometimes they add more to that. So that is a watch app store that you can download these apps without needing to log into Google at all. Okay, barometers tied to the weather app, your basic browser, calendars, your basic calendar and downloads. File manager is where we can see how much memory we've got. I've actually installed a folder full of other apps to be able to install onto this watch later. So I've reduced the amount that's used, but if you add these two together, you'll see that you have quite a bit of memory, and the difference between what you get and 8 gigabytes is taken up by the operating system. Okay? And then the Play Store and the voice search that comes with it, which is your Google Voice search, and then there's the 2 benchmarked apps that I just installed. Let's have a look at the settings. We have your basic clock settings. where you can change the clock face, create a wallpaper clock, and of course your date and time setup, which you can do automatic with all the other settings. We have your sound settings, where you have all of the different volumes that you can set simply by sliding the sliders. And the watch ringtone, which you can change to one of several. As you can see, a lot of different sounds available. We have reviewed all these sounds before, and you can check out all of these on several of the different watches. So I'm not going to go through this time and play each and every one of these. It's about 20 minutes worth. But just know that these are your stock standard ringtones that are showing up on these Android 5.1 watches. And the same thing with notifications. We have several different notification sounds that you can play, ranging all the way from none down to our last one being zirconium. Metal sounds, I guess. Okay, so those are the ringtones. And of course, you can add vibrate to the whole thing as well. And we have display, which has a brightness level where we can adjust how bright it's going to show on the display over a long range. Really nice. We have the timeout, how long it takes before it sleeps. I've got it set to 30 minutes. It can go as low as 15 seconds. This is the same on all of these watches. Your connection has the ability to do Bluetooth, Wi-Fi. You can go into airplane mode, make out a Wi-Fi hotspot, and we've seen GPS and VPN. All of those are standard. Then there's your power savings capability, where you can open, flip, bright screen. With that turned on, then you turn your arm and the screen will light up with the time and then go off again. And off screen automatically disconnected so that it doesn't go off. The language and inputs, where you can set up which keyboard you want and what different voices you want to play if you install alternate voices to the default. Resetting your equipment, we've seen that. This is where you can go in and basically do a reset of all of your information on the watch. The device management area, if you have your SIM card installed, that'll light up, and then you can manage your messages, your calls. We can take a look at the battery in here. You can show the battery percentage if you want. I usually turn that on. And it shows you what apps have been using the most power. So you can shut off the ones that are really power hungry. And of course, security, where you have only the opportunity to put a PIN code in if you want to lock your watch, or none. And of course, you want unknown sources checkmarked if you're going to install apps in any way other than from the Google Play Store. And that is it for there. Uninstall apps. I have these two in here, and you can see how limited it is. All you get is the option to uninstall or not. And again, I recommend this on every video when we get to this part, to actually get into the ability to control your apps and clear out cache memory or just force quit them. You want to install an app from the Google Play Store called Setting Search. And with Setting Search, you open it and you go into the applications and you get the traditional layout for how you can manage your applications. Way more sophisticated than just this one. So that's one of the first apps you're going to want to add to your watch is Setting Search. And about the device. And again, we just did a firmware update. I'm actually running the X1 firmware on the X3 watch. It still works fine with the two buttons. Here is the information that is currently running on the watch. You notice it's different than the first one. Okay. And again, back up at the top, we have a couple of more things. Whoops. We can do the wireless update. If there's an update available, it will let me know if I'm on the network and give me the option to do a OTH, it's called, over-the-air update. And then the last one is this developer options, which you want to stay out of. This is not a place for messing around. You can literally screw up your phone so bad that you won't even be able to see it, and even flashing won't help sometimes. So if you do anything, you might want to turn on the stay awake when it's being charged, if you like to have the time display at night. But other than that, I would not recommend messing around with any of the other connections. Some people who are familiar with phones think that in order to hook to a PC, you need to turn on USB debugging to be able to connect and transfer files and stuff. It's not that way on a watch. This needs to be turned off. So if you're having trouble connecting because you went in and turned that on, turn it off. Or best of all, just turn the whole thing off and don't even have the display developer options active. And we looked at all the about stuff. So we are done with settings. So those are the canned installed apps, and I'm just showing you quickly on this one because what I want to do is bring up the old one and show you what this can look like when it's really all decked out. It takes a long time to set one of these up, and having to reflash the firmware wipes everything out from scratch. You have to start over. So I just want to show you on this watch a couple of things you could install on this watch, or either of them, because it runs on this. Okay, everything you're about to see is available on the Google Play Store, and we have talked about it in other videos. So if you like what you see and you want more detail, just start roaming. The first one is display brightness, and you don't see over here on the side that I have a little panel that lets me brighten or dim the screen by sliding up and down. See right there before it fades out? It's called display brightness. You can install it and set it up, and no matter what screen is showing, this will always be on top and let you modify the screen brightness, which happens to be the biggest eater of power on your watch. All right? Another one that's really cool is right up here, the floating toucher dot. You see that slightly showing? If I touch it, it launches it. You have 3 different panels when you buy the Pro version, and you can load them up with all your different apps. It is a launcher that floats on top of your clock skin, your watch face. And you have all these things available. An important thing about this one, if you install it and you make sure that you have this one, the Settings Search app, loaded so that you can access it, you might get yourself out of a mess later down the road if you were to try and change these clock skins and ended up with it messed up where you just have a black screen and you can't go anywhere, even touching it to get into your apps. If we've noticed that if you have floating toucher on there, the screen will be black, but that dot will be available. And if you touch it and you have it configured to go into the settings search, you can then go into applications, go over to your launcher, and clear the data from your launcher, which will wipe out that bug and that mess, and it'll come right back up to your first watch face, and you don't have to reflash your firmware on the watch. I know that sounds technical. There's a couple of other videos that go into detail about that. Just remember, what you may want to do is make sure you have floating toucher installed, and also install settings search. So you can tap the phone button and just go, or home button, come right back here. So we have that one going, we have that one going. Now, you saw when I touched this that there's a thing called swipe home button. And if that is activated, it allows you to swipe, but generally up from the bottom in different directions to do different things. Down always closes it. If I do a nice long sweep from the bottom, I bring up an overlay similar to these other ones you've seen, but this is like the Nova launcher. But it's not the Nova launcher. Well, it looks like it. It's actually Launcher, Floating Launcher 3. That's the name of the app. And you can place different apps on each of the different pages, and you can have multiple pages, and each of those pages can have either apps or widgets. It's great. And it just is there, and you can put it away. And you can get to it by swiping up. And it floats on top of whatever you're on. So if I'm here and I fly up there, there they all are. Now I've populated mine with a bunch of other apps that I wanted to show you. First of all, he says, as it doesn't flip, there we go. Setting search, there's another appearance of that. Volume control is a simple app that gives you the slider volume on the screen so you can adjust each of your volumes quickly. This one is called Super Mute. You tap it once and it immediately mutes all of your audio system settings. Tap it again and it restores them back to default. So these two together I use to just set my volume and mute or unmute. Screen filter is a quick way of just slightly dimming the screen, and it just goes on and dims it, and then you touch it again and it brightens it back up again. So if you want to conserve your battery, that's a good one to have, but if you're out in the bright sunshine or something, you can tap it and make the screen brighter. And screen off does just what it says. You just tap it and it shuts the screen off. Whoops. I have Chronosoft running here in the background as well. Let's close that one. And let's bring that up and screen off. There we go. I know a lot just happened there. There's our Antutu score. I think I actually have a lot of apps running that need to be cleared. So I'm going to go all the way to the bottom and into my recent apps and close all. There we go. And now we come back in here and load up the launcher. And the screen off just turns the screen off. Easy from the keyboard. I don't have to touch the sides. When I go over here, I've got news feeds. I get ABC News. I got In Shorts. These are different ways of showing news, current news on the screen. Easy Voice Recorder is exactly what it sounds like, an easy-to-use voice recorder that has gain control. So it's a really nice one for recording soft audio in conversation or from a distance. You can boost the gain up. Breathing Zone, we've talked in other apps. This is a breathing rate app that you can just, while it's on your arm, pace your breathing to match the flow of what you either hear by sound or feel vibration on the watch, and just use it to relax. And this is that one we just used for the swipe screen thing, because sometimes it doesn't work. If you do certain things, it's not activated, so you can always come back here and activate it. And then my last page, I just have quickly a couple of audio apps. This is a public radio utility, so you can play radio, and Stitcher is similar. You can play podcasts or a variety of like the CBS News, ABC News, all the radio news shows and things that you hear. And of course, you can have Django and Spotify and whatever music source that you like on here as well. And if I press and hold, I can move these things around. There's the different pages. And if I press and hold and I tap here, I can ask it to put a widget on here. So if I grab a widget and I move it, say, way over there. Whoops. Let's try that again. Grab the widget, move it over here. Well, there we find a free one. And always allow it to create these widgets for us. And now all of a sudden I've got a widget. So when I slide up and bring things up again, there's this clock widget that I put on there, which you could move to different places. And that's the next page. And of course it moved some of my apps around, so I could just press and hold and move it around. Back over there. And up here at the top is the Google bar that you can touch to search on Google. Okay, so this is just an idea of a lot of the different things that you can do with the X3 watch from Finow. And again, this is all running right now on the slower processor, lower memory version. If you bump up to the new one, which is a faster processor and more operating memory, both RAM and ROM, you can load a whole lot more apps and widgets and all sorts of things that you want inside of here. So highly recommend you keep an eye out. We have links to Finow at the very bottom of the screen and this video that will take you directly to a couple of their buying sources They, of course, will be the first ones to release it, and I understand that the X3, the 2-button version, will probably be the very first one hitting the market, followed by either the X1 or the X5. We have had a review of the X1 Plus. The X3 Plus, this one will be the first one out, and then the X5 Plus is in testing right now. That's the larger one, and we're looking forward to a review of that one as well. So there you have it, a quick overview and deeper look at the X3 Plus from Finow. Thanks for watching.